My name is Damien. I am 31. What did Jesus do for me? I think my experience with Christianity shaped the value of my relationship with the Lord today, in that I always wanted authenticity and I never received it. I never believed that anybody's life was all put together and beautiful because I knew mine wasn't. It would be a lie for me to say that I'm always happy with Jesus. But it would be very true for me to say that without Jesus, I'd never be happy. When Jesus showed doubting Thomas his hands, he said, I'm gonna meet you where you're at. In my anger, he met me and he said, you want authenticity and I want to give it to you. I grew up in San Antonio, Texas. I grew up in a very abusive household, both religiously and physically, which in turn caused a lot of psychological turmoil for me as a child. I got kicked out of my house when I was 14. Kind of had to fend for myself and figure out how life works. Went from house to house and friend to friend, and life was just about surviving. After moving in with some friends of mine and getting really into a lot of drugs, alcohol, partying, a lot of sex, a lot of just whatever I could use to fill the void. After resolving that I didn't really have a place in this world, so I just decided it's time for me to take my life one night. And so I went out of my apartment. I walked out in front of an oncoming vehicle. Somehow, some way, the vehicle missed me. And so I remember I stepped back onto the sidewalk and I fell to my knees and I started crying. My older sister, Ashley, she showed up about 10 minutes later, and I asked her what she was doing there. And she said that she had a dream that I had done something. And she tried calling me and I wouldn't pick up the phone. Went to the hospital, and that was my first attempted suicide. The depression was just unending. I really couldn't figure out a sense of purpose to this life, and I thought that the Navy would fill it. And so I joined the Navy, and after getting married, my depression just got really bad. I deployed. So certain things happened on deployment, and I came back home and I was diagnosed with PTSD and childhood PTSD. I was forced into rehab. I got a call from my wife at the time, and she said that she wanted nothing to do with me. She left me. Yet again, I was on my own and alone and purposeless. And so I called my sister, and I had a gun to my head, and I said, Ashley, I can't do this. This is the older sister that picked me up from the first time. I was scared because I didn't necessarily want to die, but I also didn't know what else I could do to figure out my purpose for staying alive. She said, Damien, you just need to pray. You just need to pray. And I said, man, it doesn't work. God's not gonna hear that, But I got off the phone with her and I said, okay, I'm gonna pray. I had a conversation with God. The first time I had a true relational conversation. And I said, God, I don't believe in you. But if you're real, I want you to prove it. If you're real, I'm willing to do whatever it is that I have to do to know you. And if you show me that you're real, I know that there's reason for me to live. So here's my list of circumstances to believe. I'll go to church. This was on a Saturday night. I said, I'll go to church tomorrow. If there's a church that's within walking distance from my work, it has to be open after I get off of work. I went to work the next day, got up, ready. I had my pistol in my glove box in my car, and after work ended, I looked on Google and I found that there was a church that just so happened to be about 5 minutes walking distance from my work. And I went, and I felt uncomfortable as soon as I walked in because nobody there looked like me. And so I remember I sat toward the back, and I sat there and they were playing music that I would never listen to in church, but it was compelling. I remember crying, and I sat down and I said, okay, this might just all be circumstantial. So I had another conversation with God, and I said, if you are real, somebody has to talk to me before I leave here. I remember I was wearing like a wife beater and a do-rag, and so I knew I looked nothing like anybody. And I knew that I didn't look very presentable or easy to approach. So I sat through the sermon. Don't remember what it was about, but I do remember trying to rush out at the end. Somebody grabbed my arm from the back row on my way out, and she said, her name was Melissa Maynard, and she said, "Can I talk to you?" She said, "I just wanted to let you know that I heard the Lord say that he hears you and that he loves you." And immediately, she didn't see it at that time, but I had the conversation. I said, "Thank you." She gave me a hug. And I remember I went to my car and I sat in my car and I wept. And at that instant I knew, okay, well, God is real. And so I said, "Okay, God, you're real. But now what? This pain hasn't gone away." So I went back the following week. I remember contemplating, am I supposed to move back home? Now what do I do? Rest in peace. I remember Papa Jerry. He came to me and he said, "Hey, I wanted to let you know that God says he has a home for you here." And so I came back the next week and I decided, okay, well, I'm going to live my life for God now. And I was filled in the Holy Spirit and I started speaking in tongues that day. Within a month's time, this miraculous experience that I had with all the doubt that I had in God, but I still felt a lot of pain. I made it my duty to just figure out who God is. In the next year, 2 years, really just investing in, God, who are you? Who do you say you are? And who do you say that I am? And the pain that I felt, while not immediately gone, lifted. Purpose began to reveal itself. My purpose was revealed in my relationship with Christ. And in having relationship with Christ, I realized all of this pain is just momentary. It's fleeting. There's moments of pain and there's moments of joy. I was healed of bitterness and hatred for everybody that I thought was supposed to love me. It was a restoration. It was a journey of healing that I got to go on with my family and with my friends and with my loved ones. To somebody who is extremely depressed or suicidal, I would say, it is absolutely reasonable to not want to live. It's understandable. There's not a scale for pain. Your pain is very real. Your struggle is very real. However, that as real as it is, it will pass. And that there is so much more to your life and to your story and to your purpose than your pain. I think that the Lord will patiently and willingly meet you where you're at, and he wants to. And what he will do is change your perception of your pain and the world around you. And your pain, it'll turn into the beauty of your story. I don't want to depreciate what you're feeling. I think there's much more to feel than what you're feeling now. There's much more to experience than what you're experiencing now. And that the Lord, all he wants to do is restore it. That's what Jesus did for me. Changed my perspective.